Welcome to 5% Radio, where it's all about learning like no one else today so you can live like no one else tomorrow. Please be sure to share and subscribe. Welcome back to 5% Radio Podcast, and welcome to episode 30 of the show as a whole. Today I want to talk to you about what fleas, press clippings, and goals have to do with your success. Now, if you've been following the show so far, episodes 1 through 30, then you've understood that there's a lot of different important things to understand if you want to live a 5% life. And by 5% life, I mean basically, so if there's 100 people, 5 of them really live the life of their choosing. They get to do the things they want to, go the places they want to. They have the time, they have the money, they have the freedom, they have the autonomy, meaning I can do what I want when I want. They have that ability in their life, and the other 95 out of 100 do not. So what's the difference? If you've been following the show, then you'll understand that difference by now. You've listened to episodes 4 and 5. You've listened to all the other episodes where I talk about really what it takes, where I tell different success stories, where I teach principles from the lives of people who have made it, that have really done some extraordinary things with their lives and what they did by going against the grain, thinking differently, and doing something that most people are not willing to do. So, that being said, what do dreams, goals, press clippings, what does that have to do with you actually getting to a 5% life? So I want to start with a quote by Rick Pitino. I'm actually wrapping up, today I'll be wrapping up his book, Success is a Choice. I started it back in January 2021, and got a little dry, so I put it down, picked up another, I don't know how many dozen books since then, and came back to it to finish it off, because I mentioned in a previous episode that my mentor is kind of gearing me right now towards getting into reading coaching books, variety of different fields, but coaching books nonetheless. So I'm finishing that book up, and then I'm going to Winning Every Day with Lou Holtz. So anyway, totally beside the point, but I like to share sometimes what I'm reading. And by the way, if you are not a reader, I will be doing a future episode on strictly reading, the benefits of reading, how it's different from any other form of learning, and why you should be reading. And if you can be reading and you're not reading, there's really no difference between you and someone that cannot read, who is illiterate. So reading is one of the major keys to success if you want a 5% life. Now, if you want to be successful in the generic sense of make a lot of money and have a self-employed business, or you want success in the employee quadrant, then by all means, you really don't have to read that much. Just about anyone can be highly successful there if you're willing to trade a lot of time. However, the people who have a 5% life, I'm not talking about someone that makes $1 million and works 50, 60 hours a week. I'm not talking about someone that makes $10 million a year and they do something that they cannot get away from. They take a vacation, they come back so stressed because they've got so much going on and they are the center of the wheel and everything comes into them. Everyone's got to report back to them. It can't leave my desk without my signature, all that kind of stuff. They're on the phone all the time. Not impressed by that, not what I'm looking for. If you've done that, phenomenal, then you have had success. And a lot of what you have learned so far up to this point will help you if you want to transfer over to the right side of Robert Kiyosaki's cash flow quadrant. Episodes 4 and 5 reference that if you don't know what I'm talking about. But when it comes to living a 5% life, successful people who have financial freedom are readers. I have yet to meet, find, or hear anyone talk about that is a 5% person that has true financial freedom, not leveraged, in debt up to their eyeballs, and they have enough money coming in that they can pay everything. I'm talking true, total freedom. I've yet to meet a person who is not an avid, voracious, hungry reader on a regular basis in a variety of different fields. Are they out there? I'm sure there's unicorns here and there, but I've yet to meet any of them. So anyway, all of that being said, I want to get back to this quote that I found. I came across this, I believe it was yesterday when I was reading Success is a Choice by Rick Pitino, and he said this. He said, "Goals are the individual steps we must take in the pursuit of our dreams." I'll say that again. Goals are the individual steps we must take in pursuit of our dreams. So to summarize that, basically what he's saying is your dream is the ultimate destination. The goal is the small thing you have to do along the way. So if you think about if I'm on a journey and I'm listening to my GPS and it'll tell me here and there, turn right, turn left, take this exit, take that exit, blah, blah, blah. It'll give me individual steps, but ultimately my goal is the destination. It's the address that I am plugged into, but I have to have turns along the way. I have to have stopping points along the way. I've got to have checkpoints that I have to hit in succession, one after another, in order to actually get to my destination. So the goal itself is not the destination. The dream, the destination stays put. but the goal is constantly changing because the goal is something that I set on my way to achieving the dream, to getting to the destination. So I'm going to set goals that lead up to bigger and bigger and bigger wins. I heard someone put it this way: the dream is the destination and the goal is the fuel. Meaning, if I'm driving somewhere, the dream is where I'm going. The goal is my fuel to get from point A to point B, and then point B to point C to point D, and so on and so forth. But when I eventually get to Z, when I go from A to B to C to D, eventually I'll arrive at my destination, but the goals are the little things that are getting me there. So let's say that my ultimate goal is total financial freedom. I'm going to put a date in the calendar. I'm going to achieve financial freedom by blah, blah, blah. And that equates all of the things that I want to do with my life. All of them are hinging upon me getting time and money completely taken care of so I don't have to worry about that thing anymore, which for a lot of us, I want you to stop and think about this, because a lot of people will say, well, money's not really that important to me. Well, if you're trading 40 or 50 hours a week, if you talk to someone and they said they spend 40 hours a week in church, or 40 hours a week with their family, or 40 hours a week in the gym, every single person listening right now would be like, man, that must be that must be so important to them. It's probably the most important thing in their lives. So when people say that, well, really, money's not that important to me, and my job isn't really, it's not one of my priorities, it's just something I quote unquote have to do. Well, if you were to base people's priorities off of the amount of time they spend doing any given thing, and you looked at your job or what you do to actually make your money, again, reference episodes 4 and 5, it's less important how much you make and more important how you actually make that money. If I'm spending 40 or 50 hours a week doing something and it's not actually my priority, it's not my purpose, not my calling, not my top thing, I've got to get this done. I mean, there's an argument to be made there that yes, it is your priority because it's getting the most time. We have 168 hours in any given week if you take away sleeping. So if you choose to sleep, that automatically right there, if you get an average of, we're not going to be crazy. Most people don't really get 8 hours a night. If you're getting 8 hours a night, good for you. But most people, let's say they get 7. So that's 49. So 168 minus 49 is roughly 119. So assuming that I have 119 hours a week, now I take away my 40 or 50 hours, just for the sake of round numbers, let's say 50 hours between driving and everything else, me showering when I get home from work, me getting ready for work, getting my coffee, getting my breakfast, my lunch breaks, all the time that I cannot get back that is spent with work. Now we're looking at 79 hours left in my week. And out of that, I've got to do my eating when I come home, my showering before bed, my time with my family, my chores around the house, everything else. So now I've got this small slice of the pie that's left. So really, if you were to look at your time just based on a calendar, how much time did you spend on any given thing? Well, my work, how I make my money is my priority, but for most of us, that's not the case. So let's just put aside the argument of money's not that important to me, because if you're working 40 or 50 hours a week to make your money to pay your bills, it's been said that if what you're doing for work isn't paying your bills, then what you're doing to pay bills isn't working. But if that's where you're spending the bulk of your time, then that probably is the main priority in your schedule. So if you want something else, you've got to have a dream. I've got to have a dream to do more. And if you had time and money taken care of completely, I didn't have to worry about it, there would be a lot of other possibilities in your life. So assuming that is the dream, that is what you want to get to. And by the way, if you've made it to episode 30, you've listened to 30 episodes, 29 until you got to this one. If you listen to 30 episodes by now, then you're probably interested in learning how the heck can I get into a 5% lifestyle. Later on in the show, I am going to cover one of the projects that I'm working on currently that is helping myself and some other people actually get to the place where they are completely financially free. Something that you can do really, regardless of what your industry, background, experience, anything else is. It's really something that anyone can do if they choose to apply themselves, but I'll talk about that more in a future episode. But if the dream is true financial freedom, a 5% life, that's my destination. My goal is my fuel. I've got to set goals, and I've talked about this in previous episodes, but I've got to set goals that are realistic. And I've always got to have the next goal set. To give you an example, here's a personal story. When I was coming up through rank, as we call it in martial arts, when I started as a white belt and I was working on getting my black belt, we had a couple different kinds of people that were in the school, the dojo, I believe is the Japanese word, but in the school that I was in. And there were people who were there just for some experience, and whenever things got really hard, they would quit. There were people who were there just to kind of check things out. They might have made it like 1 or 2 promotions, and then they were gone. And then there were people who were there, quote unquote, for the long term, but they didn't really have a goal defined, so maybe they get their black belt, maybe they don't. So there's 3 different kinds of people. So there's 5 total. There were a fourth group of people that were there for their black belt, and there were a fifth group of people that were there for truly the long haul, meaning as long as I can do this, I'm here because of the love of the game. I enjoy what the process is turning me into. But going back to the fourth person, so I'll go through those again. There's the person that's trying it out. They're there for the experience. Things get hard. They quit. There's the person who is there kind of poking it with a stick when they get to their, maybe 2 or 3 promotions in, they quit. There's the person who's quote unquote there for the long haul. They're not necessarily there forever, but they're there. They're going to get somewhere close to black belt, and then they're like, you know what, that's enough. I'm satisfied. They quit. There's a person that gets their black belt, and then there's a person who's there for the entirety of their career as long as they can do martial arts. But going back to that fourth person more often than not would get their black belt and then leave. Like that, to me, that blows my mind. If it took you, depending on the style, somewhere from 4 to 10 years to get a black belt, depending on how many times you're coming a week, depending on how naturally athletically gifted you are, depending on if you have any background in any type of martial arts sport or martial art discipline, depending on, there's so many different variables. If you have good body awareness, for example, a dancer is a perfect training client for personal training, gymnastics, martial arts, because they have great spatial and body awareness, but that may not be the case for someone else coming into the sport. So we'll say 4 to 10 years. You might be a little bit over that. You might be a little bit under it, depending on the style, depending on the school, whatever. But I saw so many people come in, get their black belt, and just leave because they didn't have the next goal set. They would achieve the thing they came to achieve, and in their minds, they're like, boom, it's done. I got what I came for. I'm out of here. Then there was the person that had the next goal set, and this is really where the air got thin. There's a saying called blue bloods, and it kind of refers to the people who really, really, really make it to the top of things because the air is thin up there, meaning they've risen so high on the top of the mountain, the air is thin, and their blood is blue because it has less oxygen. So if you've ever heard that saying before, that's what blue bloods means. Usually it's referring to people that have made it really, really, really far up financially. They're just ridiculous, just multi-billionaires, just ridiculously wealthy. But let's refer to this in this analogy that there are certain types of people that get into martial arts or any sort of discipline, and they are there for the entirety. They're there for the process. They're there for what it can do in them, rather than just saying, you know what, I'm here for the journey until this certain point. Once I hit this goal, I'm done. That's like on the movie Forrest Gump when he literally just takes off and he's running. And then you see him starting to grow a beard, and then before you know it, he's got this super long beard and he looks homeless and he's wearing the ball cap and he's just running. And I was running and running and running. And then all of a sudden he stops. There's all these people following him and he's like, think I'll go home now. Like he's just all of a sudden he's done. There wasn't really a clear destination, but man, he was just there for the enjoyment of it. But forgive my bad Forrest Gump accent and reenactment there, but for someone who is really in it for the long haul, they have the next goal set. They're there for not just the temporary journey, but they're there for, meaning my dream is not going to be something that I get to and I'm satiated. Like I'm not satisfied because I hit this certain thing. I want to keep going. I want to go as far as I possibly can. My as far as I possibly can may not be as far as somebody else's, but I want to go as far as I possibly can. I want to do as much as I possibly can. I want to give as much of myself as I possibly can to this thing, and I want to keep setting the next goal so I'm never getting satisfaction out of what I've done so far in a negative sense. In a positive sense, yes, it is good to be satisfied. Pat yourself on the back, congratulate yourself, take time to celebrate goals. If you've set aside some money or you've done a give up goal, meaning I'm not gonna have X again, or I'm not gonna do X again until I achieve Y. There's all kinds of different things you can do to really set goals and delay your gratification. Maybe I'll do another episode on, different kinds of goals that you can set to really motivate yourself and have that burn that Napoleon Hill talks about, that burning desire. You've got to have it. It's got to happen. But if you don't set the next goal, what happens? That person would get their black belt and they're gone. And I'm talking like they might be gone within a few months. It might be a few weeks. They might quit almost immediately. They're not going to tell you, hey, now that I did this, I'm satisfied. I have no more hunger and I'm done. But it'll show up in the fact that they started skipping classes. They wouldn't come to teach. They weren't there to give anything back to our community. They just got their black belt and they quit. And this is really where it comes into, are you a giver or are you a taker when you get what you came for out of that specific thing? But going back to always having the next goal set. See, I cannot tell you how many times I have had something. I actually had a conversation with one of my mentors right when my wife and I got out of debt. We were completely debt-free. Remember, like literally that evening, I sent up a message and basically just let it, like, we're completely out of debt. We paid off XYZ, and, it was it was either $47,500 or $46,500. It was basically, we'll call it 47K. We paid that off in 19 months, and I was so excited. We're totally out of debt, blah, blah, blah. It's time to start just throwing some money in the bank and stacking up money. And he's like, that's great, but it's super easy for you to get comfortable now because you're about to be in a position where you can buy cars cash and you can do all this other stuff. And what's the next goal? Like, basically, he told me in no uncertain terms, now I'm going to find out what you're really made of and what you were really here for in entrepreneurship, because you've already started to have some success. If you're truly hungry, you will keep going. And hunger is the differentiator. It is the deciding factor between having a goal, setting another one, knowing that you're constantly setting yourself up for what is essentially the possibility of failure. Like, if I'm at the gym and I'm lifting, and let's say that I'm squatting, and I just squatted, I don't know, let's just say that I'm a novice lifter. I've been lifting maybe like 2 or 3 years. Okay, I just squatted 350 pounds. I just squatted 355. Okay, man, let's ratchet it up 10 pounds. Okay, I just hit 365. Felt pretty difficult. I hit 370. Now I'm coming in a few weeks later. Man, let's go for 375. Let's go for 380. Let's go for 385. Let's see if I can hit 4 plates, 405. If I can hit that, can I hit 415? Can I hit 420? And there's this incessant hunger. I've got to have and do and be more, not in an unhealthy, I'm dissatisfied, I'm trying to fill this void that I have. Not in that way, but like, I just want to improve. I just want to get better. If you do that, you're setting yourself up for failure, because you will do what's called miss lifts, meaning you will miss an attempt. You will fail a lift. And basically what that means is the weight goes down and it does not come back up. Like, you end up hitting it on the safety bars. Your spotter has to help you. It ends up on the lifting straps. However you want to look at that, you have to dump the weight off your back. But I go down in a squat and I can't lift the weight, so I dump it, or I ask for help from my spotter, whatever that is, and I'm not able to lift it. Now, if I'm setting the next goal, I'm always setting myself up for failure, because if I'm doing something that I've never done before, eventually I'm going to hit my potential, my cap at that moment, not my true potential, not my ultimate, this is as far as you can ever go, but I'll hit a cap, and then I'll have to go backwards, grow again, and then come up to that potential, break through it, go backwards, grow again, work with a little bit lighter weight, work just under that, adjust my percentages, adjust my reps, my sets, all that stuff, continually pushing myself to do harder and harder and harder and harder workouts, so I can have adaptation, so I can have stimulus, and then adaptation up to that, so I can get a little bit stronger. I'm getting into nerdy, like, programming stuff. Just follow the analogy. As I get into lifting, I have to lift heavier and heavier and heavier weights. My workouts have to get progressively more difficult. The intensity has to come up, or the volume has to come up. One of those two things. I either have to raise the volume, so the number of reps and sets that I'm doing, or the intensity has to come up, meaning the amount of weight that I'm lifting relative to my 1 rep max, meaning I can only do this for 1 rep. I can't do it for 2. I can't do it for 3. I can do it for 3, but I'm just going to do it for 1 and say that was good. Like, this is an absolute true 1 rep max. It's 100% of what I can lift. Maybe 98. Maybe I can't put another, maybe I don't have half-pound plates or whatever, and so I'm squatting 405. Maybe my real potential is like 408 and a half, but I squat 405. There's no way I can make the jump to 410, and okay, perfect. We found your potential right now. Now, if you don't choose to set the next goal, you're not going to set yourself up for failure. That's fine. You've arrived. Hey, look, I squat 4 plates. Good for you, man. That's better than most people. You squat 405 pounds. Awesome. That's where you're going to stay, and you'll just keep working out to maintain that. Or I can say, you know what, I'm okay with failure. I had the humility and the awareness to say, you know what, if I fail, it means there's room to grow, so let's go for more. This is not unhealthy. It's not pious to say that you're content and that, we're happy with what we have. And, you hear people say things like, well, even though we're broke and we don't have much money, like, we're still super happy, and like, that's basically just passing off, like, you know what, I'm comfortable and I don't want to do anything to challenge myself right now because I've become very familiar with what's going on. It's not really a comfort zone because it's not what I want, but it's a familiar zone. I'm used to this. Like, it's, it's okay. I would rather deal with what I'm used to and what I have currently than try to get more and risk the possibility of failure, or realize that, hey, there's more out there that I can't have unless I'm willing to work. And now I'm dissatisfied and I don't want to be dissatisfied. So I'm just going to stay comfortable. I'm just going to play small. And you're playing small does not serve the world. It doesn't help anyone else when you don't have to grow from the age of 25 to the age of 80, when there's no real development or change in a positive direction for you as a person because you've not put yourself in an uncomfortable situation ever. In the weight room, here's why I love it. In the weight room and martial arts and anything as far as physical discipline in any sport, if you want to get better, you've got to go through pain. You've got to go through discomfort. You've got to strive to get to where, okay, I'm failing. How can this be something that I can accomplish next time, even though I failed today? How can I go back and practice, put in the hours, put in the reps, so to speak? What do I need to do to improve in this area? Because right now I'm at my potential. How can I raise that lid? And then once you get there, once you actually succeed, once I set my dream destination, I've put the goal in the tank for the fuel, I've realized that the goal is, those are the individual steps that we must take in pursuit of our dreams, to quote Rick Pitino again. I've done that. I've continually set the next goal. I achieve thing A. I shoot for thing B. I shoot for thing C. I'm not going to let myself get comfortable. I'm the fourth type of person that is there not just to get the black belt and quit. Excuse me. I'm not the fourth type of person. I'm the fifth type of person. I'm there for the journey. I'm there to do as much as I can, to give as much as I can, to be as much as I can, to become as much as I can. It's been said that we're not human beings. We are human becomings, because it's constantly changing and evolving in this process of learning and growing and striving and failing and trying to get better. What happens next? When I finally actually achieve more success than most people have, I've got to be willing to not read my press clippings. What do you mean? Here's what I mean. If someone writes an article about you in a newspaper and you go read it and you're like, man, I am as good as they say. I am, you know what? They're I'm right. They're right. I'm awesome. I'm probably the best there is. So, man, I should just, bask in this, how good I am. Like, that's reading your press clippings. That's what happens. Years and years and years ago, the Detroit Lions, they're a very, very, very losing football team. They haven't won a championship in 6 decades, something crazy. They might actually have a good year this year in 2023, but up to now, they have not done well in a very, very, very long time. There was one point in their season where they won the first 4 games out of 16 in their football season, and they went to a recording studio, and you know that song, Another One Bites the Dust? Like, they went and recorded that as a team after winning their 4th game. Like, they finally actually started winning after years and years, like 5+ decades of just sucking it up, being terrible. And they went and recorded a song at the studio. Now, if you play for the Detroit Lions, I'm not saying anything bad about you, but overall as a team, their record kind of speaks for itself in not the most positive light. They didn't have a good season for 50+ years, like a really significant season. And they win 4 games, and instead of let's set the next goal, let's be hungry, let's just continually grow, and we're here for the duration. And no. Instead of doing that, they went and recorded the song. In other words, they read their press clippings. Guys, look how awesome we are. Another one bites at us. We beat someone else again. Look at us. We're amazing. When people get to a place where they begin to realize, I'm actually getting some success, there's kind of a fork in the road. You can choose humility and realize where that success came from. Realize that because you were willing to sacrifice, because you had help. If you see a turtle on a fence post, he didn't get there by himself. He can't climb the fence post. You realize that there were so many people involved in my success and me getting to where I am. There was so much of God's hand in my life leading me from thing to thing to thing, the thin threads that got me to where I'm at today, where I even had the chance to try to do this thing. There's so many different things, and I'm so thankful. I'm so grateful for that, because I'm nobody special, and I started off here, and I remember when I was this, and I'm really just this person that got around these people and got involved in this, and man, there's been so much positive change that I can't take credit for. Like, that's the right road to take. The wrong road to take is like, man, look how great I am, and everyone else is so just, I'm above them, and yeah, I used to be one of those people, but now I'm better. Like, that's the wrong, that's the path of lesser character, the path of really overall just you're being arrogant at that point. You can read your press clippings, and what happens then? You don't set the next goal, because why set the next goal when in your mind you're already the best? Why improve when you're already the greatest thing since sliced bread? Why would you need to be a better spouse to your wife if you're already God's gift to women? Like, I don't need to change. Like, that's the wrong attitude to have. The thing that you've got to do is set the next goal. There's an analogy here. It's actually I believe it's a real study that was done, but there were these fleas in a jar. Some of you may have heard this. If you have heard it, great. Hear it again. But there's these fleas. They put them in a jar. Think about like a ball mason jar, 32-ounce mason jar, glass mason jar. They put them in a jar, and these fleas are jumping. And initially, when you put the flea in the jar, they can jump something ridiculous, like 3 feet high. I think they can just jump. It's incredible if you've ever seen them jump, or look up charts of like how high a flea can jump, and there will be like a little chart with a dotted line from like where they would have jumped. It is absolutely astounding what those little things can do. You don't want them in your house. They're disgusting. You don't like, they're gross, but they are a pretty cool little creature. But that being said, they put these fleas in a jar. So they took them, they're bouncing around. They can jump, let's say 3 feet high, just as example. So 36 inches they can jump. I stick this flea in a jar, and then I put the lid on. Now that flea can jump out of the jar, but when I put that lid on, that flea is constantly jumping up and hitting its head over and over and over and over and over on the jar, eventually where it gets to the point where I take the lid off. This was a study that was done. Take the lid off, and now the flea only jumps up to just where it would like almost hit its head and then goes back down. Now, remember, the same flea can jump 3 feet, but it's learned through failure or through complacency. You know what? If I try to push out of this jar, my comfort zone, my familiar zone, if I try to push too far, I hit my head and it hurts. I don't want to do that. In other words, I've already succeeded enough. I'm going to bring this analogy. Usually people use that as like, oh, you're the flea in the jar and you've been there your whole life and people have held you down and you can jump 3 feet, but you're only jumping 6 inches and don't you know who you are? Like, I'm going to take this a different direction. That flea realized, okay, I can only jump this far. Now I can keep hitting my head and getting frustrated and pushing for more, or I can say, you know what? This is good. I'm just going to picture a flea jumping up and down. This is good. Home to work. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, weekend, man, 48 hours off. Woohoo, get together with the family. Sunday afternoon football. Boom, back to work Monday, Tuesday, jumping. Wednesday jumping, Thursday jumping, Friday. This is all my life is. You know, I could probably strive for more. I know there's other people that live a 5% life, but this is really all I want to do. Is it really? Is it really? The dream is the destination and the goal is the fuel. Goals are the individual steps we must take in pursuit of our dreams. Always have the next goal set. Don't read your press clippings. Don't be the fourth type of person that says, you know what, I got the black belt, that's good enough. You know, I squatted the 405, that's good enough. Always have the next goal set. When you get to the fork on the road, choose to remain humble and realize where your gifts came from. Realize the journey produced some things in you that would not have been there. Realize that people were involved. Realize that God's hand was there directing and orchestrating things. It's not about you. It's not what you've accomplished so far. There's always the next goal. Please always choose to strive to be better because the world needs people that are willing to go out and struggle and fail to better themselves so they can bless other people, so they can grow through the process, so they can help others grow hand in hand in their journey instead of just staying safe, comfortable, and in their complacency zones. Please set the next goal and strive for the 5% life.